Good afternoon. Welcome to Trail Talk. We are so glad you could join us today. You are in for a real treat. I just found out how awesome this is actually going to be for me personally a couple of minutes ago. Let me introduce you first of all to Melissa Smith of Melissa Smith Design. This is her jewelry line that we've talked before. You were on Trail Talk before, and she explained all about her jewelry line. She has special motion jewelry, and anyway, she's an artisan. She creates everything, does everything by hand, constantly adding to her lines and trying new things and just really pushing herself as an artist. And the result is a lot of really beautiful pieces of jewelry, very unique pieces. And I'm very excited. The exciting part is that she's demonstrating the newest line. Is this the newest line?
Well, it's one of the newer techniques that I use.
Okay, a technique that she uses. And anyway, she's going to let me help a little bit. So I'm super excited about that. But we'll have a chance to look at some of these pieces up close, but I'm just going to kind of let you talk us through these things. If I have a question, maybe I'll pop in with a question, and we'll just let you kind of take us through the steps of this creation process.
Okay, sounds good. Just a little background, like she said, I don't know that you can see it real well.
Maybe if you put that behind it.
That's a good idea. But one of the techniques that I have come up with is one that there's movement inside. So everything that I make so far is mainly necklaces, and they all have movement. So when you actually move it, then you can see the movement.
There's like a liquid
Right, there's a fluid.
inside, and then there are some kinds of.
This happens to be silver beads in this. Then we have things such as turquoise and some,
Which these are, I'm kind of in love with. You said there are like 5 or 6 different types of stones or pearls. That's another one that you said could be inside these.
right, rubies, amethyst, and some of that's over here, and sapphire. And then I don't know if I mentioned that these are made with fine silver. Now, most of the time when people that make jewelry use silver, they use sterling silver. So what's the difference, you may ask?
I was just about to ask. How did she know that?
So fine silver is 99.9% pure silver.
Okay.
So it is the higher it, like in gold, the higher the carats of gold,
Right.
the softer it is.
Yes. Yes.
So for jewelry making, most people use sterling silver, and sterling silver is 92.5 instead of 99.9.
Okay.
And the extra percentage is copper, and it makes it stronger. So in anything that has a setting, like rings or anything that might take a little bit of abuse, that's the best ideal thing to use, maybe as a setting with prongs or something like that. Sterling is normally what you use. Well, with mine, I don't know that I'll be making any rings.
Oh, that's okay. We were searching for a piece of part of her process here, so
We'll just not worry about that.
yeah.
Anyway, so this inside here is what I call fine silver beads inside this little one here. So that is real metal, just but with my design, I can use fine silver, and the inside is basically the design that I came up and created. That's the part that's the feature of mine, and that's the part that takes a long time.
Okay.
So
You do silver work,
mhm,
but that is just, it's just the frame for the art that you created,
correct.
right?
It's the setting.
Uh-huh.
Now, I have to admit, I have to watch myself or I get carried away and I want to really, really do a lot. And my jewelry is more simplistic,
Mhm.
more nature related. I don't, although I'm a very detailed and tend to be a perfectionist, I don't want my jewelry to look like it was made in a factory.
Right.
I don't want it doesn't necessarily have molds that it's melted and poured into like a lot of your silver or your gold is not, there's not a thing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's just not what I do.
Right.
But what I had been doing this and had a different framework of how I made the jewelry before, but my second collection, I had learned about something called precious metal clay. So precious metal clay can be fine silver, it can be sterling silver, copper, bronze, and you go down the line, and it can be all those. However, only a few of those clays can be torch fired. Everything else has to go to a kiln. And the torch fire is what I use. It's got its advantages probably and its disadvantages, but buying a kiln, that's definitely an investment.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is I really enjoy the fire to me, and messing it with it is very relaxing. It's kind of like actually creating with the clay.
Right.
So that's some of what I do with that.
Okay.
So
I noticed we have someone join us by Zoom today. So I just want to say hi to our guest. Is there a name on there?
Charlotte.
Charlotte?
that's my mother.
Your mom? Well, hi, Melissa's mom. We're so glad you could watch with us today.
And you pronounced it right.
All right.
Oh, you pronounced it right. So,
Well, you were talking about using the torch
right.
to work the silver or the clay.
So during the time I had done my first round of jewelry, I didn't even know there was such a thing as fine silver clay or precious metal clay before that. And so when I did and I started learning more about it, I thought, I think this is a great idea. I think this would be a great addition. And what I didn't know is everything that I had done before, I kind of had to flip flop. I was doing the inside or this part first, and then I was doing the outside after, and it ended up working better if I did the outside first and then the inside.
Because the inside, what is the vessel, I guess, that's holding the fluid and the beads?
So it kind of looks like glass, and some
It
people have
does.
thought it is, but it's UV resin is what that is.
Okay. Resin.
So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay.
So it actually holds it, and then you can have movement in it. And I worked with, before I got into the jewelry, I worked with epoxy resin. And that was wall art type stuff.
Okay.
So I was a little familiar with resin when I got into this, but this resin is, you might say it's, when you think of getting your nails done, if you get special nails and they use the lights, this is kind of a version of that.
Okay.
This is more of a high-powered version of that.
And so it needs heat to set up,
UV light.
UV light. Okay.
It's a UV resin. So one of the things that's different about using the clay than it is, say, if you were a metalsmith and you were taking a sheet of silver or whatever you were
That's
using.
last week, Walker Clampett. I was just thinking in my head, the
Mhm.
different process. He uses a sheet
Right.
of silver to create his jewelry.
right.
Yeah.
And in fact, I have, and you can get that sheet like he's got, you can get it in sterling. You can also get it in fine silver as well. And so most of the time they can cut that out and they can make stuff out of it and they have their exact dimensions because they're cutting it. Well, your clay has a shrinkage factor. And so what that means is once it dries, it shrinks a little bit. And then when it fires, it shrinks even more. And every clay, every brand of clay, even if it's fine silver clay, has a different shrinkage factor, a different amount of time that you're supposed to fire it. When you're firing it, it gets those molecules. The clay, what it is it's actual silver, the 99.9% silver, and then it's got a binder that goes with it. And it makes it soft and pliable and that sort of thing. And when it dries, which is, you can't tell much, but here's a piece that I just cut out this morning.
Okay.
And when it dries, it can be broken easily.
Oh,
So they call this the greenware stage.
okay. Like on ceramics, there's a greenware
Okay, that's
part of
probably
it.
where that
Okay.
came from. And see, I have a background of buying metals. So greenware stage, I kind of understood it there also. But then what I do is I prepare, however I'm going to do this, I prepare it beforehand, even sanding it down a little if needed before I fire it. Well, during the firing process, it does something that's called sinter, and that's SCINTER.
Okay.
And that actually gets it hot enough that it can melt those silver pieces together. But the first part of what happens with that, and we'll see it in a video, is that when you first heat that with the torch, then the binder flames up. It actually catches on fire and you see flames, and then it dies down, and then you keep it, at least for fine silver, you keep it kind of like at a coral underneath as you keep it on there.
Coral color.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's the right temperature for it to center if it's got that color. And in the film that I will show eventually, it shows at first where I have a lot of light, you can't tell the color, and then I turned off the lights and you could tell that it's more color.
So this is the fine silver with the binder in it.
Right.
And then you use the torch and it burns the binder away.
Yes.
And so the shrinkage is where the binder is leaving and the silver is pulling together.
Exactly.
Okay.
You pass that down.
Ha, ha, ha. And that is called sintering.
Centering.
Okay.
Cool. So that's the basics of how that works. And you can do this all kinds of ways. You can use cutouts to make designs. I had actually made some of these designs thinking earlier that I would do my process differently, and I end up using them more for just a pattern now that I can use. And so what I did this morning, if I can get this out without breaking it, this is to fit on this. It's actually the sides, just like, well, this doesn't have a back, but this is the sides. And if it had a back, it would be a little rectangular,
Okay.
solid piece. So I had fixed this today. Let's see if I can get it out without breaking.
Oh, yeah, it's moving. And so what is the green
The
part?
green is silicone.
Okay. And do
It's-
you have fixed sizes of silicone or do you?
I created all these myself. And that's basically what you use to make a mold. See, I made this
Okay.
mold using a leaf
Uh-huh.
pattern, and we'll talk about that after a while.
Uh-huh.
But silicone is what you can use to make molds. And I
That's
have-
what, there's a sculptor who has had his pieces here, LaQuincy Reed,
Mhm.
and they use a silicone to make the molds also for that.
Okay. I haven't seen his entire process, but.
Yeah, it's a lengthy process.
It's
that whole-
very,
Quincy, if you're watching.
Yeah, shout out to LaQuincy.
yes, I always like to watch his videos.
Yeah,
Now, this one is one I made this morning, and this is one of my favorite styles of the bells. And this, to me, looks more like a vine, and I like to
Okay,
twist it into
right.
shape.
right, and for the chain,
Mhm.
that, okay.
And then it can pop out. And then this could be on its own for a setting.
Uh-huh.
And I could put something inside of it, whatever I decide that I want it to be. But, so that's some of what I'll be demonstrating today, is how to do that, maybe how to put this together.
I was just wondering how those two become attached to each other.
Okay,
So,
let's start by rolling out a little bit of clay. Well, let's not, let's just do that first.
okay.
And then we'll get that. We'll roll out some clay after that. So the neat part about this is, when you do this, you don't have to, unlike ready-made metal. Okay, let me say this again. Fine silver and sterling silver fuse together a little bit differently.
Okay.
You can use, what's it that Walker used, what's it called? When you use the little, and you melt it.
solder.
Solder,
Uh-huh.
that's the word.
Mhm.
You can use that, but it actually shows up as a seam on here. So, but the neat part about fine silver is when you have it together, it fuses together when it's fired.
Mm.
So, what I could do here, if I wanted to do this, is I could take each one of these pieces separately, and I could fire them, and then I could, if, later I said, oh, wait, I wanted those together, I could go back. You can fire this as long as you want. The danger point is when you see something shining. That's the melting point.
Oh.
So you don't want to get to the melting point on any of this.
Uh-huh.
But it's so much easier to work with when it's in the greenware or the clay stage. And so what we do though, simply water will actually wet the bottom part of this, wet the edges
Uh-huh.
of this, and then we'll put it together. And then we may go on the inside a little bit, and we can let it dry completely. And then if we decide later we need to mess with it some more, we can. Ideally, you would want it flat, just like you would when you were soldering sterling.
Mhm.
You'd want it flat. You wouldn't want to see light through it or whatever.
Right.
But that's what it is. Now, this is how that seam is how I put that
Right.
together.
Right.
It's not perfect by any means, but water can help smooth that out as well. And you
Okay.
can also sand this also.
So if it's wet, it becomes pliable again?
I think it wets that binder
Uh-huh.
is what it does. And I just found out recently that I can reconstitute this from this dry stage too. I thought, wish I'd known that sooner.
Okay, so that means you don't have to throw the scraps away.
Exactly.
You can put it back with the other and put it into something else.
Right.
That's awesome.
And of course, after it's fired, you've got scraps too sometimes. But they can make all kinds of things with that. That's
I
kind of
know.
one of my next projects.
Oh, okay, okay. Do you make your own silver beads?
These I do not,
Okay,
but you can use the same process and just make tiny little beads if you want,
uh-huh.
and use the process of water to add. And in fact, I still haven't made myself some earrings, and I don't know that I will use the floating technique in the earrings simply because they may be too heavy. But I had thought about using some of those silver beads on there, and you
Uh-huh.
could make all that work with that too.
Right,
So let's just play with this one.
okay.
So this is just distilled water,
Uh-huh.
and this is my brush. It's all fancy because I've been experimenting with 3 different types of clay lately, and you don't want to cross contaminate. So
Okay.
I'm having to be very careful about what I do. 'Cause my handy dandy,
So this is very interesting to me. I probably would have thought, oh, just spritz the clay.
well, you can, but sometimes you get too much. And so this way you can,
You can control it.
Right.
more. You're just painting a little bit around the edge where that ring is going to sit. And then hit the edge of that. Hey, Emery, can you, get any, like, pull that closer and like show what she's doing here a little bit more? You might even be able to move the camera up a little bit to help the lens.
okay.
So it's just softened up already. That's fascinating.
So it makes it kind of like a glue.
Uh-huh.
Well, and then I haven't opened it, looks like over there, so
Mhm.
it must not be quite. But you can also take pieces of clay and just put a tiny bit down in there later on. I won't mess with it right now because
Mhm.
it's wet, but I can take just a tiny little piece of clay and make it wet and really just kind of brush it in. Probably after this whole process is done, I will go around the edges and of the outside and kind of seal that together.
Okay.
And then I know it's hard to see, but this seam right here is sticking out enough that I can either use water, kind of smooth that around,
Uh-huh.
or if needed, I can use a little bit of sanding paper or whatever and take some of that.
And do you sand it at this greenware stage or do you sand it after it's been fired?
You can do both, but this is the easiest way is before.
Okay.
Because it's so easy to work with, and afterwards, it's hard like you would expect metal to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is when you can just do so much with it without having to. I mean, you can just play with it, play with it, play with it at this point. And to reconstitute it, you can actually put this, say, here it is. So this tiny little thing called scraps
Okay.
of the clay and everything. So once this is dry, I will even have residue of scrap metal right there, and it's just real flaky. That's what it looks like.
Mhm.
And so I'll put it in here.
It looks like when you, like pan for gold at one of those little places and that's
Oh.
those little fine flakes of metal, you
Right.
know, that you find, that's what that made
Right.
me. think
Remind
when
me
I
of
saw
that later, because I've got a story
Okay.
to tell you.
Okay.
But, so if I got finished with this and I thought, I don't like this at all, this didn't turn out the way I wanted it, or I've got a piece of metal that hadn't been used yet, or the clay that's too dry to use or whatever, you can add water to it, but if it is just bone dry pretty much, you can put it in here, spritz some water in there, close it up, take it out the next day, and there's a way to reconstitute that into clay,
Wow.
which, like I said, I wish I'd known that sooner. There's a lot. So I'm gonna leave this right here
Uh-huh.
and show you we will just play with a little clay. Let's see. I think I want to use this one. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna just this is kind of just a little bit, some people use olive oil. This is
Okay.
just a little bit so it won't stick. You don't need a whole lot. And then these are my fancy
I'm wondering if she was doing card tricks or what, maybe.
Well, what they use this for is, you think of slats. What are
Uh-huh.
slats used for? They take up.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you roll this out in what they call card thickness.
Oh.
And so you use a roller and you put this whatever amount of thickness that you want,
Uh-huh.
and then you roll it out, and then you form it after that, when you get to the thickness that you want.
Okay.
So what I've done here is, this is 3 cards thick, and this is 3 cards thick. And I can't stand cards sliding around, so I've got them all taped up, but then
Uh-huh.
4 and 5 and 6.
Okay.
And then the 2 is the way it is because I have to have longer ones. That's the disadvantage of cards. I'm planning to get some slats, but they've been out of stock. But the slats are probably about this long. And that way you can go longer and make longer pieces. When I'm making this, which is the sides,
Mhm.
that has to be long. You measure it somehow, like I might take this real fancy piece of equipment here and actually kind of measure it around
Uh-huh.
to see how long I'm gonna need my piece of clay to be.
Okay.
And then I can lay it out flat with that measurement and make sure that it's at least that long.
Okay.
So, pick up a few tricks along the way. So, but right now. we're
Card
just-
tricks.
Yes, that
I
too.
couldn't stop myself.
So right now we're going to make a flat piece and we're going to, in fact, I'll probably just let you do this. Oh, and so right now I think I will make this 5 cards thick. And that will be a nice thick piece.
So, what would you use something that thick for?
Those.
Oh,
Just a
okay, something
solid
like this,
piece.
like for a solid piece of metal,
Mhm.
a silver charm or whatever you might
Right.
call it. Okay. And so that starts 5 thick,
Right,
but it shrinks.
right.
Okay.
Depending how much
Yeah.
that one does. So I'm gonna get my clay, and this is a clay, I'm calling it wrong. It keeps the moisture.
Okay.
And so it's got a sponge in the top, sponge in the bottom, and you just spray distilled water in there. And it keeps moisture in there so it doesn't dry out.
So it's a special container
Mhm.
for that.
Right. And so I'm gonna take this clay. And we're going to make.
So when you buy this clay, is it like a big chunk
No,
of it or?
it
are they
actually,
Oh,
this is the one I'm trying right now. And I was thrilled. This says it's got 50 grams of clay in it. Most of the time it's one big chunk when you get it out. This one happened to have 3 bags in it with the instructions. And so,
Oh,
which is
okay.
wonderful because as soon as you open it, ideally you will use it.
uh-huh.
It's the freshest, it's the best it's ever going to be as soon as you open it. After
Oh.
you've worked with it or it's dried out a little bit, it's a little
And
more
it
difficult.
says 5 grams.
5
on-
grams.
On it.
And this says 25.
Okay,
And
interesting.
so the one that I
So-
just opened.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot more. That's heavy, in fact. That's much heavier than I thought that was gonna be. Huh.
Well, it is metal.
That is so interesting, huh?
It just, it's a little bit different. So we're gonna take this, and this is that same clay that I opened up earlier today,
Okay.
and I keep it wrapped up for the most part, just so that it will stay as moist as
Mhm.
possible. You don't want it to dry out. But this is fresh out of the package, and ideally, if you're getting it fresh out of the package, it's not gonna get your hands really soupy wet. with the metal. And that's the way you want to work with it, if at all possible, because when it gets too wet, it's just kind of soupy. And it gets all over the place and you're wasting clay, and you don't want to waste clay.
Right, right.
So we're gonna take a piece of this. They just take all of them. And press it a little bit. Ideally, you don't want any folds in the top. You want to get any air bubbles out. You don't want any cracks. And this is perfect. It's very supple. It's perfect. One of the other clays that I've recently tried, it was so hard and it was so dry, and I kept trying to work with it, and I felt like I'd never done this before. So it was just and what you can do is you can move it around. Ideally, I'm going to make this either, well, let's start with more of a circle, since we're kind of, let's see if we can't make go smaller than the 5. But as you roll it, you start from the center and you roll past the edges, and you roll all the way past the edges going back. I didn't put much pressure on that because, as you can tell, when you're going that way, it's going to go the way that you roll.
Right.
So I'm going to turn this over and try to keep it more.
Just like you would a pie crust.
Okay. Being not the cook that I am, that sounds wonderful. Okay. And what we're going to do, I think it's a little small. No, it will work. So I'm going to let you take this, and what I have done is I've dunked it in there, so
Okay.
should not stick. We can move this to where it's convenient for you.
Okay.
And then you just press it just gently
Mhm.
all the way through and just kind of work it and make sure all of it's down the way it needs to be.
Okay.
And you don't have to press extremely hard. It's pretty soft.
Now I'm making a sugar cookie.
That's right.
Do I pull it up?
Yes. Okay. So there's our pattern,
Okay.
and it looks like it went through well. And we're going to take our pick, which this is one of the primary tools I use, is a pick.
Okay.
And I'm going to cut away the edges.
Wow, that was easy.
That is easy. And if I was thinking, which I wasn't, if I had put, well, let's just do another one right quick. Yeah, move that, obviously. So ideally, I would have put that on one of these.
Oh, a little card to lift it up.
Mhm.
Okay, but that came up easy.
Easy enough. So let's do another one. I'll let you prepare that, just get
Okay.
that, dunk that in there,
A little smaller one.
and I'll roll this out right quick.
This is not at all what I was thinking it would be like.
It's
Not at all.
very relaxing. So this time, instead of just putting it in there like you did, here's a little trick I learned recently.
Okay.
So you put the saran wrap over it and try to make sure it's fairly smooth. And then you do it through that. And after you do that, I'll move it where you can get to it. After you do that, I'll explain why you use the saran wrap.
I don't think it.
You
went all the
want
way
to try
through,
a
did it?
little bit more?
Yeah.
It may work better with the circle.
It might, I think it only went,
Okay.
oh, it might work whenever you pull it off though. It might be in that. Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
It did,
Okay, so what this does is it kind of pushes the sides down so they're not frayed. You may not have noticed it on that one, but I used the pick on that, and so you have a little bit more fray. On this one, it still did a really good job, but with the saran wrap, it keeps the edges down and you have less finishing to do.
Okay.
And then
Oh,
like-
it does look different.
later on, then you can take your little brush, you can take water and you can go around, and I did it again. I don't have it on anything.
What it did is like, that has like an edge that you could run your
Right.
thumb around, and this, it's like it's flattened down.
It kind of curves on the
Uh-huh,
edges.
yeah, and so it's just.
So it looks
very
more
flat.
finished
Yes, yeah.
starting out. So let's see if I can get this up.
On my
This-
first attempt, I'd just be crushed if you ruined it. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Like how I have to dig cookies off the cookie sheet after I overcook them.
Okay.
All of my cooking references here today.
Okay, so that's basically how you do that. So what if I wanted to make those sides? I think I'm gonna use 3 and I'll make something. I've got this one I could use, or you can use one of these or whatever. So tell you what I'm gonna do. Well, just do this circle. And
Does it need to be prepared? In
uh,
that?
you check it. It may need to. Is it?
Oh, it's a little bit.
I may
it's a little
have-
bit greasy.
May have done that earlier.
I'll just do it because I feel like this is my professional.
You're such a, you're my help.
Here, yeah,
Okay,
I'm the sous chef.
okay, so I'm going to.
Can we expect ED in small letters in the logo? Pretty soon?
Right, yeah, my name will be added in very tiny microscopic letters.
Okay, so I'm wanting this to be long and thin,
Uh-huh,
and that's why I had made these 2 as long as they were.
right,
Ideally, I would have slats or something, but I'm going to.
now that I see how you use them, it was not clear in my mind. But you just lay your rolling pin on them, and so that's as far down as it
Right,
goes.
that's right. It helps you get the thickness that you
Uh-huh.
want
Mm,
in whatever you're making.
yeah, that's a very smart tool.
So.
Add a little moisture.
But I want these to be long and narrow so that I can cut. And you don't go from the edges over, you start in the center. Okay.
To go around this.
Mhm. So. What I'm gonna do, is I can work with it better parallel to me. And then that's when I take my blade.
Okay, I was wondering about these blades there. I wasn't sure what those were.
So sometimes I like to just kind of have a guide on so I can get straight.
Uh-huh.
And then I will go a little wider, I think.
And so those have a, once, it's like a knife blade. like a-
Right.
It's very thin.
It
Much
is very
thinner than
thin.
I
You
thought.
You can. I
This,
didn't get that straight.
this is like thinner than a box cutter blade.
Yes, and it's pliable.
Yeah, very, very much. Huh, I did not expect that to feel like that. Thought it would be more rigid.
Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so then I just take the extra away with my pick.
Uh-huh.
Move this before I cut myself.
Yeah, those seem very sharp.
They're very handy. Okay, so ideally, I will want this to have the edge that will kind of butt up to each other, so I angle it.
Mhm.
We'll see if that.
Okay, okay, yeah. Understood.
And we'll see if that will go around there fully. Okay, so.
Look at that. You've done it a few times. It's almost exact.
Okay.
It's the
so-
tiniest bit of overlap.
Well, that was a pure surprise on the length because I didn't measure it. But, and then I kind of press in on this. Now, the reason that we grease it obviously is so that we can get it off easier when it's dry. So, but I do want it level all the way around where I
Right.
can. And I can even right now go ahead and take a little bit of water and mesh these together just a little bit if I wanted to.
And so you'll leave that to dry on that, the circle, the
Yes.
cylinder.
Mhm. And then I can take it off after it's dry. But that, I've tried it. If I don't put it around something, those little sides will
Mhm.
fall in or do whatever. So
Mhm.
that's the reason we do that. So
So now how long do you anticipate it will take for that to dry to where you would go to your next step?
well, you can rush it along if you choose.
Okay,
I have a mud warmer at
Mhm.
home that I can put this in this stage exactly. I can just go put it in there and it can probably dry in 2 or 3 hours or
Oh.
maybe even less, maybe about an hour on that because it's very warm. Some people use dehydrators.
uh-huh,
You know, if you were doing a lot of metal work, I can see where that would be beneficial. I don't happen to have one, so I just, and my space that I use is pretty small, so I don't use that. The dehydrator works for me, or I would allow this to air dry for about 24 hours and go from there. Now, I had a bobble with, I think I mentioned that my clay that I had been using, they quit making.
yeah.
And so the first clay that I tried to consider replacing it was a more dense clay. It didn't roll out as easy. It was just harder. And this piece over there that Pam will met in.
This one right here, yeah.
So I ended up doing that one and I let it dry for 24 hours. It's, don't worry about it. It's not that.
Well, I think it's interesting to see though, is this one, you pulled it out or did you polish this?
That's been polished.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this, it's not smooth.
No, and what
Yes.
happened is this has to dry completely before you fire it. Otherwise, there is moisture pockets in it.
And that.
And when I was firing this, I had let it dry for 24 hours, but it was on a day that it was rainy and humid.
Oh, yeah, you
And-
can see them on the back
Yes,
too.
and it was this clay is more dense than I was used to using. And so I started firing that and it was snap, crackle, pop, and I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good. And that's when all those lumps came up. So I'm thinking about making maybe leopard spots out of those lumps. I mean, you're not gonna wear it as
Why
it
not?
is.
That's exactly right. That's how you make, if life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right?
So you get lumps, with, you know.
Okay,
leopard
so
spots.
you got the little hole in it for the, like the,
Oh, right.
the hanger. So
Right.
is that something that you're gonna need to poke in?
That's
these
a good
little things?
idea. I am actually thinking about stacking these and making two out of it, but we can do that later.
Okay,
Um,
so you could add the hole later.
right.
Okay.
Well, you can drill the hole later if you choose. I'm gonna put a hole in this one, but I'm not in this one in case I decided to add it to another one.
Uh-huh.
Ideally, if I was gonna layer it on top of another one, I would probably start with a thinner. I think this was 5. Is that what we did? Something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And ideally, it'd probably be 2 maybe, because you're adding it to, you
Mhm.
don't have to have it as thick.
Mhm.
If I went with 2 cards, and just fired it, more than likely, it's so thin, it's not gonna do well, which is part of the problems with another one that I did over there.
Oh, okay.
So where is my?
You have a tool to make.
I have, and I'm missing one too. I wonder if that's in the same bag with that I missed. Okay, so I made this morning. Let me see if it will let me work it out.
Yeah, that's the one you said you did the little vine
Right.
with it.
I have a little tool to put holes in this. But I'm not finding it at the moment. Let me see if one of these are flatter. I could try this, but it's
Oh, that
actually a
little
bigger.
straw.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And I have used that. That's what I used on those, but it's a little bit bigger hole than I want. All right, it's gonna be stubborn. Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone so that I don't
So you
break
don't
it.
break the vine part.
So that's too big.
This little thingy right here, I don't know if that's too small.
Oh, that's the little cap for
uh-huh,
this.
Cap for that,
Okay.
isn't it? I don't
I
know.
don't know how it would work, but let's just use the pick. Let's do it. I will just make it.
Because it's so soft.
Okay, so if you touch it, you can feel it raised a ridge because of the way I did it.
Yes.
So I'll have to smooth that down later and I can do it with water or whatever, but for now, we're going to just leave it be.
Okay.
So we've done that and I showed you the sides and
So is that dry enough that you could pick it up and they would be attached to each other?
you're not gonna be solid.
Right, like you wouldn't, but.
But I can work with it.
It's attached.
And if I wanted to, at this stage, I could mess with it some more, but it.
That's cool
ideally-
though, for us to be able to see that where you put the ring on the flat part, that
Mhm.
now that it's dried out a little bit, that it is attached.
Right, it is.
So that's cool.
So next, I'm gonna take one of these others. Let's see if we can get it out. And we're gonna make a vine bale
Okay,
and add it to it.
okay.
Okay. So there's that. I'm gonna move it out of the way so I don't mess it up. And I'm gonna take,
So are these like some of like shapes that you use over and over in your designs?
I have used those in the past
Uh-huh.
to make different things and I ended up making those and I don't even remember why I made them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just kind of reusing them for this.
Right.
Because I need something for the sides to go on. So when I made that vine, ideally I would have made it thinner. But you
Okay.
start, this is probably too much, but I'm going to start with less this time. Okay, so I'm wrapping this up every time because you don't want the air to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna first start rolling this out between my fingers.
Does the heat make it softer too, whenever you work it?
It does, but when you use it with your skin, it dries it out faster. So
Mm.
ideally you won't. So what I'm going to use, once I get it out a little bit, is a flat little piece of acrylic.
To roll it?
Mhm.
Oh,
So I'm gonna take that now.
back in the days when I played with Play-Doh all the time,
Right.
some of these things would have been handy.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I'm gonna roll it with my fingers first. And if it's drying out, which the thinner it is and the more you roll it, it's
the
going to
more
need
it's-
a little bit of water.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to be mad because I did that, because it's gonna make everything messy, but it's gotta have it. Okay.
So it made it a little bit slick
Right.
and that, plexiglass didn't want to work.
What I don't like is this,
Well, yeah, I can see that there.
but I need this quite a bit thinner, so let's see if we can.
And you just apply pressure to it.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that's. I can see
And I
it.
have
And
a
it smushed that,
tendency-
it smushed that
Did it?
out. Yeah, see, it's going from down there. Oh,
I
that's
think I
cool.
have a tendency to kind of push more on that end, that's why it's flattening out more on that
Oh,
end.
Right, like that. Mostly, there's just a tiny bit of that mark still on there. Oh, yeah, that end is really getting thin on this end. Yes.
It's all about that size and make sure.
Just, I can see that it's just technique, trial and error. Just work with it, adjust as you go.
Exactly. Still a little thinner, but I'm gonna cut a little bit off right now because it's way longer than what we're going to.
Okay.
And ideally, when I'm using this, I like to use it. I've used it mostly when you've got something that comes to a point or something that is kind of rounded instead of like a square top.
Uh-huh.
To me, it's probably got a little more of an organic look to it. When I use it. And I have made bells that I literally cut out of the clay and I make a form or a pattern and maybe out of paper and cut around the paper. I use cardstock
Oh, okay.
when I'm making patterns.
Yeah, that's a lot thinner than.
That's not ideally thinner it is. Well, that. When you start moving it around and it dries out like it does, that's really long for that. So I was deciding, what if we either did it upright like this and put it going this way?
Okay, uh-huh.
And I still think that's going to be really, really. So what I'm going to do. I don't have.
Oh, another little straw.
Yeah. I had it, or I had it somewhere. Just maybe didn't make it into my stuff. Almost got it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and a little bit.
More slicker,
Mhm.
making it slickery.
Okay, and this seems extremely long to me, but basically, ideally, I would take this. And if it starts drying out, then I will wet it down, but we're gonna try it before we got it. So I feel like I'm not handling it all the time. It's hard to get dry.
You can just tell.
Because it doesn't want to bend.
Um,
And if you try to bend it when it's dry, it will crack. So let's add a little bit of water to this. Get what it wants. And we'll try it. Not a perfect process. Not what I'm doing. Anyway. So we're gonna try to go up here. And this is starting to crack at the top. You probably can't even see
oh,
that's.
no,
part
I
of
do
it.
see that now.
So I'm gonna stop it and wet it.
Is the air conditioner on? It's just the clay.
It's just the way it works. Okay, so we're gonna go. Make it go up that way. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my brush. See if I can get this. with it, hopefully it will stick to itself.
Okay, yeah, for the loop.
And then. So right there. I'm sure the camera can't catch it.
Plus, the form that you've made already is dry, so it's gotta be wet to attach to that.
And ideally, I would wet that. Thank you for mentioning that. So we're gonna go with that. I'm gonna leave that length the way it is.
Yeah, it turns out that it fits pretty nicely on there.
And this will hold it pretty good. Now I can also take this or this and just cut it at a little bit of an angle. Make it more pointed.
To where it goes a little
Mhm.
flatter on the edge. But at some point, you'll be able to smooth it again.
Exactly. I'll take water later on and smooth anything, but I'm trying to mainly get this to adhere to itself, form a shape. And the metal clay has kind of a memory too. So when it's been flat or whatever, sometimes you have to coax it a little bit into a shape.
Interesting. So it's not always gonna do, it's not Play-Doh.
Well, Play-Doh dries out too.
Well, I
You
mean,
know?
like, yeah, but you can make Play-Doh do whatever. It's not
Right.
gonna go back to any kind of shape by itself.
Okay, so I think we're gonna call this. done.
That's a pretty, intricate process. I mean, you can tell, like you said, you can't see clearly everything she's doing, but all of the water, softening the clay, making it moist enough to where it's going to and end up being like this piece before too long. This is a lot wetter than you had to get that piece, but
Right,
I'm suddenly feeling the weight of this because it just looks like a little bit of clay, but you can feel the weight
Right.
of the metal in it.
right.
That is something.
And, like on this one, you do not, the designs that I make, some have back, some do not. And it depends on what I put inside of it, if I like it to have a back. For instance, this particular design, if I put rubies or sapphires in them, you've got a shadow from the sides. And if you're wearing it against, say, a black dress, you can't see them. Well, you can the rubies, you couldn't see the sapphires. But I found when I put a back on it, then at the end, it looks whitish silver. And so it contrasts. So depending on what I'm going to be wearing it with, or what the actual
colors.
stones
The colors
are,
of the stones.
make a decision on if it has a back.
Mhm.
And that will, what I put in here, that will be a determining factor, if
Right.
it's a blank back or if it has a back.
See, interesting.
So,
So just little things you think through as you're going. You don't have to have everything figured out when you start.
oh, no.
You can change as you're moving along.
Well, that's the way life is.
Sometimes you're forced to change as you're moving along.
Well,
Sometimes.
and I
you
have a
get to-
journal that I keep of
Uh-huh.
ideas.
Uh-huh.
And so I will write them down. And so sometimes, and even I will make patterns and even cut, I use a little, what was it, 3x5 card?
Uh-huh.
And I will make my patterns on there and draw them out, and sometimes cut that out and make a pattern if I have something specific that I'm wanting to make. But sometimes, especially if I'm doing, I can do that with these designs. Anything that's got an odd shape or whatever, if I'm adding a back to it, it's really easier if I have, or maybe what I would do on that is I would do the back side of, or excuse me, the sides on this. And then I would come back and say, okay, I want to add it back to it. While the sides are still on there, I may draw that off on a piece of cardstock and use that as a pattern. And that way, everything will fit together and it will go to the edges of those
Right,
sides
right.
and just,
Yeah.
and so it just depends on what I'm making, how I want to work it.
Yeah.
So, but like I said before, this may not be that interesting to some people because this is the setting and the stones and what the movement and the fluid and all that on the inside is actually the main attraction.
Right.
So this is just to add to it. And can I shine it up? Yes, I could. But I really kind of like the brushed finish. And the reason that it kind of gives it a nice muted background for the show stopping part in the middle.
Right.
So that's
which is the art that you
right.
really are
And
creating.
so most of my jewelry that has silver on it will be brushed. So
So, this is all dry then, and so the next step that you're ready to do, is it to fire it? Is
Right.
that, so you
Yeah,
want to show us,
well,
or is there something else in between?
I would clean it up with water. I would clean it up with
right.
sanding.
Yeah,
And then when I get it ready, and you also have to let it dry if you've used water or anything to smooth it. And so then I go to the sanding or the firing part.
okay.
And this is what that is. We won't go into. I'm not going to do it in here because it lets off fumes.
Okay.
And this is a outside garage activity for me, but I put the piece.
Can't be the worst thing
basically.
we've ever done.
Right, I mean.
So let's pretend that this is ready to fire.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna put it on there and I think this is called vermiculite. I don't know.
The stone that it's
Yeah,
on?
this
Okay.
brick thing.
Uh-huh.
And it keeps it, you can also do it on this screen by
Uh-huh.
itself. I think, especially if you have a back on it or something like that, I think for me, I have better luck with this. I think it holds the heat. And you have to heat this for depends on the clay, but the neat thing about this is you can go as long as you want and fire it. And if I don't think it's centered correctly, which that has happened to me, and that's probably why I'm cautious and go as long as I do.
Uh-huh.
Most of the time I'll go 8 to 10 minutes,
I was wondering kind of if you have a
Right.
range of time that you like.
but most of your clays just say 3, 4, 5 minutes, something
Oh.
like that. So, but I have had some, and maybe it was a situation where it was humid that day. Maybe, maybe it was cold weather in the garage, So I just, you can go back and you can refire it. But I will, this is the fun one.
So what kind of
This is a butane torch.
okay, butane torch?
Mine has a clicker. I ordered this, but I'm not saying you can't get it. The butane that I use for it, you can get Tractor Supply,
Oh,
Ace,
yeah,
or wherever. And mine has a couple of adjustments. This adjusts the flame here, and this turns it on or off as far as letting the butane to it. And then this little clicker is what I start, like starting a fire.
Right.
On one of those stoves. So I'm gonna start this up and just let you see it.
Okay.
But, okay, first I have to turn it on. Then I'm gonna get my flame and see all that yellow. You don't want that. You want a cone inside and then you want a straight flame. So I'm gonna adjust this.
Okay,
Now I can't sit there. Now we have, I don't know that you can see
I can
that,
see that.
but you've got,
Yeah, I think I think you can see it on there,
okay.
can't you? Yeah.
So, and I won't get started, but then I'm just gonna go ahead and turn this.
I have a little torch like that I made a creme brulee.
They-
And did the top of it with And it was that same kind of thing, you had to adjust that.
Right, right. And some people will just use, like the kitchen torches. Now, it's my understanding on some of your other clays, like maybe copper clay, that you use a bigger round torch, and there's probably a reason for that. I haven't got into the coppers yet. I've got a brother that's saying, when is it my turn? And I will get there. I've got some ideas, but,
Hey, Emery,
let's see, I think we're at a good spot on this. Where it's, okay, that's when the binder's burning off.
is there too much glare on there?
Do I need to move it
Angle the screen a little more upright,
on
I
this?
think. Uh-huh. Okay, oh, there, that's good. That's
Okay.
good. Yeah.
And that, okay, this is the beginning. This
Uh-huh.
whole thing is about maybe 30 seconds. And the binder's about to burn off. Now you're gonna see it flame up.
It starts smoking first, I get, oh, okay, there go the flames.
And then in a minute, as soon as it gets past this, it's gonna cut to the second go around where I turn the lights off and see that coral color.
Uh-huh. And so you keep it that coral color for,
For the length of the time that I plan to fire it.
and typically, do you go 8 to 10 minutes?
I do.
Mhm.
Like I said, I have put all this work into something and I got back and it broke. And it shouldn't be breaking if it's
Uh-huh.
metal, you know, it
Uh-huh.
should be hard. And
And so that meant that the binder was still in
the
it?
binder has burned off, but it didn't center.
So, oh, it didn't connect all the way to each other, it didn't form
Yes.
that bond.
Right.
Yeah. I wish we knew what those molecules were doing, because I have a feeling they're heating up and then they're attaching to each other, you know, somehow.
Right.
To form it, to make it completely attached.
It
That would be
is-
super cool to see the molecular structures
It
change
would.
in that, wouldn't it?
Had I brought. This looks fairly white, but had I brought the one that has been fired and
Uh-huh.
remembered to bring it, it's very white. And what
Oh.
happens is the molecules of the silver are sticking straight up.
Uh-huh.
So what you have to do is either you brush it or you take is it called augers maybe? And you go agate.
Agate. Oh, okay, yeah, an agate.
Agate.
Uh-huh.
And then and we can play with this on some of those others. But then when you do that, that's pushing those molecules back down and the shine will come through.
Ah,
So it goes from white to the silver.
more
so-
like this.
Yes,
This is more white, right?
it is, but
not
I've
as
got the
white.
silver. You're
Oh,
seeing
okay.
the silver.
Okay, it's even.
It's
whiter.
about as white as the cap on that.
Oh, wow, like
When it
this.
comes out.
Yeah,
So,
so that is pretty different.
and so once you start brushing it, then you start seeing the silver.
Is this what you use to sand?
That's one thing.
That
What
is so fine.
That's just a nail,
A
For nails.
like a buffer. thing.
but this is what I start. And
Uh-huh.
I will let you play with that one that's in
With
your
this
hand.
one? Okay,
Go on the back side of that.
okay,
Now, it's already been brushed, so you're not gonna see much of a difference, but
okay.
how
Do you-
about I show?
Yeah, show me what, like, is it a direction or?
Yes, I try to go back and forth the same direction,
Okay,
unless it's something like a rectangular one that you saw fired, which was the one I was going to
yeah,
bring.
yeah,
And then I will follow the straightness of that
okay.
all around. But
Okay.
this one, it doesn't really matter which direction, as long as you stay going the
Just making
same.
sure, you know, when you sand wood, you're supposed to go with the grain.
Right. And watch your fingers, because that bites every once in a while. You probably can't tell much with it right now.
I'm telling myself I can see something different.
Okay, but I tell you what we're gonna
Okay,
do.
oh, now we're gonna do
We
something.
will
Okay.
do something that will show a difference. So
Okay.
let's take this little sanding block right
Uh-huh.
there. And tell you
Go
what,
with
let's
the
get the
rose.
back of one of those others, because this is all lumpy and it's not gonna do as good.
Okay, yeah, this one.
Okay, so that one has been sanded with or brushed.
Uh-huh.
And so you're gonna
It's
start
good.
with the gray side on that.
Okay, Emery, see if you want to zoom in on this. See if we can see it doing its thing.
And the same thing goes, just stay in the same direction.
Okay. Yeah, it's getting shinier. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can tell it on
So
there.
turn it around and do this, the
Yeah.
other side.
It's
And,
warm too,
and
yeah,
then
but-
we're gonna go with another color. That's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Starting to show.
Okay. Oh,
Okay, so next we're gonna go with the green color.
this one.
Mhm.
Okay.
No difference.
Yeah. The
Alright,
edge
that's
is getting
looking
really
good.
shiny,
Mhm.
and I'm turning silver.
Okay, so we're
Okay.
actually sanding this with fine grit sandpaper. Now
Uh-huh.
find your white
Okay.
and use that side. Not quite as wide as it started, but when it's squeaking, it's doing the right thing.
Hear that? Doing the right thing. Ooh,
That's when you get the real shiny.
yeah. Look at the edges, how shiny they are now. And the back of the M. See, just keep going. Like that.
It may not work real well since it seems to be a tiny bit beveled.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but you can definitely see the difference where
Right.
it started, and
Right.
that is so cool.
And if you want it shinier, you can take the auger. You don't use, I don't know if it's called an auger.
Agate. is
It's
what you said a while
agate
ago.
and then, but it's something.
Okay.
But you don't take the pointy end, you take more of the curved end, and then you can rub it along. Now, will it do any better than what you're doing? I don't know, but it might get into some of those lower areas.
Well, it's definitely doing the M, isn't it?
I haven't mastered this process.
Well, this is not your, the thing that you really do the most.
That's true. I
So,
was telling you earlier that I've been asked to do some classes later on in the year, and I thought, well, I love what I do, but that's not going to work for someone else. What would someone else enjoy?
mhm.
And so I thought, well,
You can definitely see that it has made it
Looks
even
good.
shinier. Yeah. And that's the back side.
take that front side, just go for it, cool.
I think I will. Not really speaking that, oh, there it went.
And this may be the same thing on that end, if you want to try that. It's not making that noise. It
Uh-uh.
May not be.
No, but it's coming.
Now you're squeaking.
You gotta apply a little pressure.
It's
Anyway,
looking good.
yeah, look at
It looks
that.
better than it did.
I
when
think
I
I found my calling. I can polish silver. That is really cool.
Come down to the Heritage Center for all your polishing.
Right, for all your silver polishing.
Okay, so let's grab that one a
Yeah.
minute and let's look at it.
Okay.
So when I was thinking, well, if I were going to teach something, what would I teach? What would someone that's taking a class enjoy doing? And I thought about the monogram at first, but after I tried that, I thought it's probably not the best project for a very beginning student. You know, if they've never worked with clay before. So some of the teachings that I have seen is you can literally go find a leaf and look at the bottom of the leaf and see how intricate most of that is where your veining is and all of that. And some people use that literally they roll out the clay, they put an impression out there, and then maybe go one card thinner and roll the leaf on there. So that sounded fun to me. And so I literally, if I do this, say in October, that may not be the best time to find fresh leaves.
Yeah,
Unless you've got a house plants.
yeah.
And so I went out and I found some leaves at home.
Mhm.
And so I made this
A
silicone,
silicone
what's it called?
stamp,
Stamp.
is that? Can you see this?
And that's what I used to make this,
That really, you just used, oh, I see, like one
just a
little
portion of
portion
that.
of it, yeah. So she took the silicone, put the leaf on it. And so now it's got you can feel all of the veins and everything. It's an actual stamp.
And the part that I
You do a
actually,
rubbing with it.
right, the part that I actually used, to me, this stands up a little bit more than the other. So that was the part that I used. Now, if I did it again, I like the way it turned out, but then I'm not finished with it. I would take this black patina, and you have to do a little bit of preparation to get any oil from your fingers or anything off of it. You only have to clean it in the area that you want the impression. I personally don't want it all over. I
Right.
just want it where it's
Right, so you would apply the black patina to the leaf impression part of it and then wipe it off, or
Well, first,
how do you do?
with this, I believe you let it dry. Let's do it, start over. The patina you put on, and it keeps processing. It's got acid in it. It keeps processing it until you basically tell it to stop. And you tell it to stop by putting it in water with soda in it. And that stops it from processing.
Like baking soda?
Mhm.
Okay.
And so you can allow it to get as dark as you think you want it to be until you stop letting it process. And so, and another thing I have thought about, which I've used in the past, is you can also use alcohol inks on these type of things as well.
Oh,
And so I may experiment with
I was
that.
gonna say that'd be a fun little thing to play around with and kind of see where you end up going with that.
Yeah. So grab that leaf again.
Oh,
If you don't mind.
yeah.
And then with that, that's called liver of sulfur.
Yeah, I saw that.
And when you-
Stabilized liver of sulfur.
right, and this is a gel, so it's going to last better than, but it's my understanding, if you ever been to sulfur, anything, and you smelled the sulfur smell, that's what this smells like. So you need to use something like that in a well ventilated.
Right, right.
But after you get it stabilized and it has to be dry before you sand it again. So you stabilize it, you dry it, and then you do the exact same thing that you were doing before with this. You can do it on these parts, which I've already done it on the shiny parts. But then when you're using it, you go through this process again with the gray, the green, and then the white. And you're going to have the parts that are protruding the most will be the shiniest.
Oh, so the veins of the leaf will be the silver more so, and then the leaf itself will be
Right,
dark.
so you've definitely got some contrast there.
Oh, I was
And-
wondering how that was gonna work. That would be
and
very beautiful.
On this M, the same thing goes for that. I just want the black to go inside the M. Well, I really won't be able to do much as far as sanding away, so that will be basically solid for that. But something that has more texture like this, I'm anxious to see how that looks.
Yeah, I think that would be very fun.
So,
That would be a fun thing for me, like if I was a student in that class, I would think, wow, that was a fun thing to create,
right.
make it very beautiful.
This was fun for me, for sure.
So how long after this is fired can you start doing stuff to it?
Almost immediately.
Oh, because I was wondering, how is she gonna do this in a class?
Well,
But,
the longest part of this is the drying time.
uh-huh,
So if you can make that go faster, and the class will probably have to be about 4 hours
mhm,
at least to get everything done. Maybe ideally we would have lunch in the middle of all of that, give it a little more time to dry.
mhm.
But then when immediately after the firing is complete, I have a glass little tub that has water, distilled water in it. And I put it in there immediately and you hear it go.
Just like a blacksmith
Right,
working on his horseshoe and then he sticks it in the water. and
right,
Pulls it all
right,
off, yeah.
exactly. And then you dry it off and it's white, remember?
Mhm.
And then you can start sanding immediately.
Uh-huh.
So, the only reason I didn't get the black on here is you gotta clean it. You
Yeah,
gotta put this
multi-steps.
on, and sometimes with this, you may have to put it on more than once.
Mhm,
And then the third step is to stop it from processing,
mhm.
and then you can go with.
And that's within minutes.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, okay.
You definitely want to make sure that it's dry before you add that
Mhm.
acid on there or
Mhm.
whatever. So
Hmm.
would you like to make one of these type things?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna roll, let me move this. I'm just gonna move this over here. We're gonna work off of that.
Okay.
And so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna roll this out that I need. Oh, I need this. I try to make sure I cover and have a
Oh.
smooth surface. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna roll out the clay. I'll let you press the circle
Okay.
out. Well, we'll do that last,
Okay,
but let me start with rolling out the clay and then we'll go.
okay.
So we're gonna do this. So I have this the same thickness, so I need to get this clay thick enough that it's above that thickness, and that way maybe take one card off and then it can roll and mesh down into whatever area we want it to go in.
Okay, okay.
So what I'm doing now is trying to find the thickness of what that would look like.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that's probably pretty close, and that would be 8 cards thick on this article.
Okay.
So I'm going to start there, add another. Actually, I'm gonna do this 3
Hmm.
instead of 2. And then I'll do the 2 when I want it down. So I'm gonna take some clay. I did good. My problem there is I only went down 1. I'm gonna go higher.
She's talking to herself.
Yes.
This is a very serious part of the demonstration.
Yes, and I don't have to have a crowd to do that. I'm really good at it. Okay, so I tell you what I'm gonna do. I don't think this is enough clay, so I'm gonna open up another packet. Okay, so let's. Comes out, see it's all wet, it's in a little plastic bag. And I'm gonna take a portion of this. Fill off a portion. Yes. Wrap some up. So now I'm going to get this. And ideally, when you're working with the clay, you want to try to have everything organized for what you want before you get the clay out. That way it doesn't dry out, or people have a tendency, sometimes I do too, while I'm looking for stuff, I'm sitting here rolling this clay. You don't want to do that because
right.
it dries it out. quick.
Right.
So I'm gonna roll this out right quick. I'm rolling it very lightly because I don't want it all one direction. Actually, I think I'm gonna set
Yeah.
together. Okay. I think it's- Okay, I want it this big, so I'm gonna get some more clay.
Okay, I was gonna say, I think it, it's
And,
kind of too small because you're pressing down and it's not moving it.
well,
so-
and that's 10 cards thick, so that's quite a bit. There. Probably have way too much by the time it gets on top, but that's better than having. Okay, let's try this again. Still doesn't seem much, but that's fine. I don't like that crease in the middle there. So it's gonna go with a bigger piece. Now, could I have gotten all of it out and used it at once? Oh, definitely. But once you've used it once, the first time out of the bag, it's the most supple, it's the most perfect.
Mhm.
Push this together. Try it one more time.
Prepared, right?
Right.
Look at me.
You like that?
I'm a
stuff,
real
don't you?
assistant here.
Okay, so that's 9 cards thick. And we decided that. Okay, so the next thing we have to do, we have to prepare this so that the clay won't stick to it.
Mhm,
And if
that's
you'd like to do that, I will show you what to do. Okay, so we're looking for that
This.
and that little deal. right there,
Okay.
Okay, so
Open it.
open it.
Okay.
And we're just gonna dip, I'll show you how to do it. You can get too much of this in a hurry. What area do you think you want to impress on?
Oh, this one piece right here. That
Okay.
was good. That's some very.
So we're gonna go with that.
Do you have anything in
Sure, but it's not,
it? There it is.
there it is. And you don't want it to be you don't want it bubbling up in the whole 9 yards. You just want enough that it won't stick. And I've got some more of that. This
Okay.
doesn't look like it could have spilled out along the way. Okay. Now it
Yeah.
looks like a little bit better. And you want to get the places that's not
On the design.
right, because that will, and ideally you're gonna get maybe half the design and half of that's not.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that should be good. Okay, so. Let's put that right there, and we're going to. Set this here for a minute, we're gonna get this built back up. And that's. Where this is for.
Yeah, but you took it off and made it 3.
On the clay.
Uh-huh.
So I may need to do that. So let's go. I don't want it too low. Let's see if this works out. If it doesn't. we can get it. Okay, so. Put this where you think you want it. Let's move it.
It's so heavy. Okay.
Let's move it where it's more convenient for you.
Oh, let's try that.
Okay. Now, it will extend beyond wherever it's at, because if we roll it down, I have a feeling I've got it too tall, so let's just take a minute. Let's go 3 and 2. See why I don't like them sliding.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're gonna take this and the roller is right here. Let's see where the roller to go, maybe. Put this way. And hopefully I've not rolled it too much. The more you go over it, the more you might end up with a double.
So,
So, and also you want to go from the middle to the outside.
Uh-huh.
So let me go over the sides seem a little thick, so I'm going to go over them just a tad. Okay. All right. So to get it off, you're going to pull this up and you're going to, hold on.
Okay.
We're going to let this bend and not bend the clay.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay. So you got that, and now we need to cut out a circle.
You probably can't see the leaf design on it. Can you see it? Zoom in there for me for just a minute. Please. There we go. Yeah, there you can see it a little bit. Yeah, the veins on the leaf right up in here. Ooh. All right.
Okay. Now, so the hardest part of this is you got to figure out where you want this to cut.
Mhm.
And so I will let you decide where you want it, and then you can just go ahead and do it.
I'm gonna stand up because I feel like I'm gonna get a better
Yes,
look through
because that's
here.
so thick.
Mhm.
Now, do we want to use this saran wrap?
I don't know, you want to?
Let's try it.
Okay.
If you don't mind. You can still see it clearly enough. Okay.
Yeah, but see, it sticks to that and it pulls it on.
Okay, so
That looks
let's
nice
try.
and smooth.
Mhm. Let's take this. Now, you need to decide how you want it to hang. So you can figure out where you want the hole. And I've got that same little tip that I'm using. Tell you what,
You don't think, do you think that would work?
I think we can, but it's not gonna get it all the way through. I was hoping I would find something flat in here, but. Okay, that's the biggest one,
That'll work.
but it's better than nothing.
Mhm.
Look at that, look at that. Look at that, bro.
Hey,
Okay,
all right.
so you wanna raise this up so
Yeah.
hopefully he can see that?
Yeah, because I'm just basically making jewelry now. I'm basically an artist in here. There we go. The leaf. the little ball. That's so cool. And you know what? I like the, I think the saran wrap trick is a really good one. It really makes a difference on that edge, doesn't it?
It does. Now, one of the things that I haven't done that I've learned also since you want here,
Yeah, thank you.
is you can also bevel these, and what I was told is use a Easter egg and use take half off and the one that's more rounded and use that and bevel it. After you get to this point right here, let it dry that way.
Really?
And you have to have a little bit of more tools when you're firing it so that it doesn't collapse. But anyway,
Very.
that looks marvelous.
I'm
to me.
excited. Yay. How
So,
fun.
So basically, that's
That's
the gist.
that's the gist of it. Well, that is fun. I feel like that was this has just been a super fun episode, a lot of really fun techniques. But I think the thing that it's done for me is it's made it less intimidating. You know, it's like you brought this to us and shown, I mean, there are a lot of steps and a lot of tools and a lot of knowledge that you have that I don't have, but you can tell me the things I need to know and it's doable. You know, I can make a creation. Yeah, it is fun.
It's like, I made my own fine silver necklace.
Right.
Aren't I special?
Wow. This is so cool. Melissa, thank you so much. So much. We carry some of her pieces in our gift shop, but you can also go to melissasmithdesign.com and see all of her pieces that are for sale. You have several different lines of jewelry.
Right.
And everything you need to know is on that website.
And if it's
Right.
not, there's a contact. form.
Right.
And some of the neat things that have been happening recently is I've developed a wholesale line, and there's a dome shape that goes with that line and some of my newer pieces. And then I've been accepted by a place that connects creators and retailers for wholesale stuff. And I still don't have all my stuff on there yet, but that's.
Oh, wow. So another, what am I trying to say? Another way to market your
Right.
pieces. Oh, that's so exciting.
And then I've got a meeting with a gentleman on Monday that I can't talk a whole lot about, but it may be something along
else.
that nature as well.
It's so exciting for you. I'm so thrilled for you.
I'm excited too.
Oh, that's wonderful.
One of the things at the end of the year, I was just burned out because most of the time you have to do social media, and you can spend all your time doing social media. And I was like, something's got to give. I wasn't ever in the studio, and that's the fun part. And but the website takes time, that social media was just taking all of the time, and I thought something's gotta give. And so one of my goals this year, in addition to the wholesale thing, because I didn't even know about this other at the time, was maybe to give it to online galleries and let them take care of some of that marketing.
That's so, you know what a great indicator that your business has grown, flourished to where you are looking for other ways to help you so that you can stay up with the creating demand.
That's the fun.
I mean,
That's what makes it
right,
real.
that's so exciting. That's
And,
awesome.
you know, even though retail is ideally, you know, it's like just figuring it out.
Mhm.
You know, I've told everyone, I said, I'm not a machine. That's not gonna be that way. I'm even the retail side of those. And this is the only design that I have. It's this little dome design at the
Mhm.
moment
Mhm.
for the retail side. But even these are made in small batches. And for that website, I will tell them, you know, it may take as long as 2 weeks before it's shipped
Right.
out, you know,
Right. Yeah.
because it's gotta be work.
Exactly. And so this is the life of an artisan who creates jewelry and wants to sell and let other people wear your pieces and just feel so special because they have something unique and handmade and
That's
specially
right.
designed.
And I don't know that I mentioned this before, and I know I've taken way too much time already. But one of the other unique things about, other than the movement and the artisan part of it, is that every piece of jewelry tells a story. Because the shapes have a meaning, the gemstones have a meaning, silver and gold have a meaning, people's names have a meaning. And you put all that together and you've got a story in every piece of jewelry. And I even have a section on my website that's called Jewelry Stories that talks about some of the pieces and the stories behind it. And so that's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for this demonstration. This has been it has been a longer episode, but it was really a lot of cool stuff. I mean, I learned a ton. So thanks so much, Melissa, and we look forward to seeing what's down the road for you.
Well, thank you.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
having me.
Absolutely. Time to tell them happy
Okay.
trails, okay? We'll see you guys next week. Next week is just a 1-episode week and it's happening on Tuesday. An author named E. Joe Brown is going to be here, so you don't want to miss that one. And so I'll see you then. Ready? Happy
Happy
trails.